Hello and welcome. My name is Siim Kuus. We're having a conversation today about narcissism and narcissistic traits. Is it one and the same? Are there some differences? I'm joined today by my friend. If you could, give a little bit of background, who you are and what's your experience in this field, let's say.
Welcome. I'm Lucky Lucas. I have an extended history around narcissism. My whole life I've been subjected to it, from my family of origin, raised by a narcissistic mother. My brother turns out a narcissist. To my intimate relationships, where I've been subjected into the narcissistic dynamic, so to say. And my whole life was basically an act of agony, of feeling disconnected from myself, always walking on eggshells, always feeling levels of inadequacy, of never being good enough. And at one point you reach a certain age and you start to see that you're not living your best life, so to say. And you start to look around to what it is. You know from yourself you are a good person. The people outside of your close circle, like your family or your relationship, actually mirrors that back to you. They appreciate you. They never comment negative things to you. But as soon as you enter your private space in your personal life, the reality is just like shifting sands. It turns around and you always have the feeling that you're doing wrong.
As I understand, then this narcissism is really like misunderstood concept.
Yes,
because it's really because it's frequently called out on everybody, like you're a narcissist, you're a narcissist.
Yeah.
But we all have narcissistic traits.
Yes.
And what is the difference between this person being a narcissist or person has narcissistic traits?
Narcissistic traits, everybody has them. Without, you simply don't function. It's the presentation of self. It's the how do you say it? The construct of your identity or the ego. It's the self-defense mechanism. It's the part that gives you your identity, your separation from another person. Popular terms is ego. And narcissism is a misidentification with the self. So the sense of self is not coming from within, but is solely into the ego construct. A healthy person, so let's say it, a complete human being that functions according a non-narcissist, so to say, has an inner self and an outer self. So it has a core self and it has a presentation of self, the ego. So that ego is constructed from within. So like your deeper desires, your ability to connect with another person, to cooperate, to the core of what is called love, emotional empathy, the mechanism that recognize somebody else's core, appreciates that, have patience for it, recognize a boundary. that inner core, the sincere self, has a protective layer around it. That's the ego construct. And that ego construct is adjusted and maintained from within. And the amount of awareness that a person has gives deeper insight into the manifestations of the ego. So somebody who has a proper high level of self-awareness recognizes the manifestations of its own ego and can adjust it accordingly. And basically how we present ourselves, so the clothes that you wear, the haircut that you do, the way how you walk, everything is ego-based, so to say. It's the environment of your coping mechanisms. So how you present yourself, and the feedback that you get from the outside world can be monitored and adjust the outer shell so that it functions properly, accordingly, and in harmony with your surroundings. If you look to narcissism, so the pathological form of it, the sense of self is disconnected from the core, and the ego construct is hermetically closed around that core. So the core is not accessible anymore. It's left behind, like in the formative years. So the
formative years meaning
yeah,
the
like
person is
from when the ego makes its presence, so around 2 years old. So if you have small kids, you will recognize that when a child reaches the age of 2, they call it, some parents call it a terrible 2, because the ego makes its presence in saying no, recognizing themselves in the mirror. So the sense of identity really downloads, so to say, in the child, and that ego has to find his place in this world. So by mirroring in the parenting style and in the surroundings, it starts to learn his boundaries, how to behave and how to adjust it. And if the parenting is done in a healthy way, so by recognizing the child's ego, but also recognizing the child's inner self. So you connect sincerely with the essence of your child. So that child recognize also that other person has an essence, because it is seen him or herself. And by a lack of that recognition in the formative years.
Lack of empathy, maybe.
A lack of empathy, like you have a narcissistic parent, for example, and you are susceptible for narcissism. You need 2 ingredients to create a narcissist, so to say. It's a genetic predisposition, so one of your parents or your grandparents in the family runs narcissism. So there's a heightened risk that the child can develop narcissism because it is predisposition. And then the second ingredient is the shifting sense and the superficiality, the lack of control environment during the formative years. So between 2 and 9 years old, when the basic structure of the ego really comes online, that creates the backbone for the rest of that person's life. Okay. So if that inner core is neglected, left behind in the formative years, so most of the times that will be around 4, 5, 6 years old, so that ego grows relentlessly, just like everybody else, like that narcissistic traits, so to say, are part of that ego construct. And to cope with the world and the neglect of the inner self, and that ego construct starts to hermetically close itself around the core. And once that is finalized, approximately around 9, 10 years old, so the beginning of the teenage years, then it really starts to grow thicker, and the formation of the famous facade of the construct itself that draws that attention in and to feed itself starts to grow. And then when you reach adolescence age, the cake is really baked and you have created another narcissist.
But compared to, let's say, normal person then, who has just narcissistic traits, the ego does not hermetically seal, but it's in balance with something then.
Yes, it's transparent. So, like self-reflection, the ability to look honestly to your own actions.
This inner core and ego are
Yes.
like in balance or
In
some-
balance, yes.
Okay,
The ego becomes in a healthy person with self-awareness, so with ability to self-reflect, so honestly self-reflect on your own actions, can see their own behavior. So, for example, I have a bad day and I'm lashing out to you, or if I'm rude. You point it out, you don't accept that. So you point it out to me. It depends on the strength of my ego, if I will accept that, of course. That depends, everybody is different in that sense. Some people have a little bit more rough ego, so to say. So they need some more time to self-reflect, and other people instantly get it, like, oh, sorry. But there is that ability to take your distance, sit in silence, and just consider your own behavior. And just look honestly, like, I made a slide there, like, damn. And there are like inner feelings, like shame, regret, that adjust that ego construct. It's that, like shame is a really powerful emotion. It has the ability to really change your actions because you don't want to experience that again. So in my opinion, I don't like the feeling, but I really appreciate shame and regret. And why? It humbles you. You have to
you just make the adjustments
Yes,
to
avoid it.
to operate
Yes.
more healthy way.
In harmony, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
In harmony. And that is the mechanism of emotional empathy. Without emotional empathy, there is no need to do that. There's the narcissistic makeup of a person is, let's say, controlled, managed by emotional empathy. So the self-defense mechanism, so what the ego is, what the narcissistic makeup is, will manifest in a harmonious way, will manifest in a healthy way. Narcissism has a negative taste if you hear it, but the fact is that we all exhibit a form of narcissistic manifestations in the form of you can be proud on what you do. Pride is a narcissistic trait. It's that level of self-importance. It's the entitlement. I feel totally entitled to do this or to do that. It's the narcissistic trait. Anger is a narcissistic trait. Envy is a narcissistic trait. And like jealousy. But if you name them separately, and you just present, you said like jealousy or envy has a bad taste. But the fact is that if you experience that same trait encircled with empathy, you cannot say it's a negative trait. Let's give as an example envy. Envy is something that you don't want to have that stamp on how you are an envious person. But fact is, I admit that I experience envy, but it manifests in a healthy way. So if I give an example like just a fictional story, like I live in an old-time Russian house, like concrete block with a steel rusty roof and rotten wooden window frames, and the neighbor has exactly the same, so like the rest of the street, right? And I went on a holiday, 6 weeks, come back, and the neighbor refurbished the whole house, plastered the house, painted nicely white, put new windows in it, nice roof tiles, fixed the garden. So I stand in front of my house and I look like, I can see the difference. That looks nice. My house looks like crap, like that recognition is envy. But how does it manifest? So in my case, with emotional empathy, I will be like, whoa, neighbor, that looks really good. I recognize the difference. I want that also. And that is what envy is. You recognize something else that is better and you want that also. But how does it manifest? In a healthy person with a sufficient level of emotional empathy, you feel inspired. You want that also. You feel propelled to also achieve that.
If he did it, so can I?
Yes,
do it?
yes, and you feel like motivated to propel yourself in action to also achieve that. So you start to compliment the neighbor. Oh, it looks really nice. Maybe I should also think about it. Like, where did you do the windows and how much does it cost? And it's not out of the negative envy, but because negative envy. So now we take emotional empathy out of the mix. How does it manifest then? I come home, I see the difference, envy rises. Well, damn, what does she think she is? You know, like, and the color of the wall really doesn't suit, and you start to downgrade it, and to uplift yourself, and backtalk the neighbor to somebody else, to just put it down a peck or 10, you know, like, so that is the same trait manifesting with or without emotional empathy. And that is with anger. The same anger is a healthy emotion. It serves a purpose. If somebody crosses a boundary, you feel angry. If you feel a slight, but how does it manifest? Do you lash out randomly to all, or do you use it to propel yourself in action to assert that boundary and to just point it out? And then, when it is pointed out, you just control that anger and you release it. Like, so that are like same traits manifesting to two different perspectives, because that is the differences where we talk about, like a healthy normal person operates the majority perspective, so the way how we look to the world, how we interact with the world and how we see the world. And the minority perspective, but the really sizable one, is the narcissistic perspective. And they operate differently. Yes, the material world looks the same, but the meaning behind it is different in the mental construct of that narcissist. So we both look to the same thing, we both see the same thing, but the meaning of things is completely different. It's just like you have two realities playing out in the same field.
But being in a relationship with a narcissist, what is, how do you know that this person isn't just vain or has narcissistic traits, or that person you're with really is a narcissist? How do you diagnose it?
That is a really a painful journey before you really can come to that conclusion.
Why I ask it? Because today when we're talking about it, this is like growing awareness in this narcissism, like in the field, so to say. But since you have so much experience with it, then it would be like good for people who are listening, watching, just to ask some questions for themselves. You know, if they suspect that maybe they are in maybe they're dealing with someone like that.
Yes.
But just to describe your experience, because I understand that there are different levels of narcissists also.
There are many misconceptions. Like they say, you have gradations in narcissism. So from the slightly to severe. I don't like to use that term. Okay. It's the mindset behind the manifestations of particular individual. you have different types how it manifests. So how the ego is used. But the mindset behind it is all the same. So it doesn't matter if you have like the fragile, vulnerable woman who pleads, complains and manipulates in that way, or the bold, boasting, bragging, alpha male, always down the gym, kills what he eats, like that kind of figure. The last one is obvious. It's just like the affable asshole, so to say. But if you compare that to that fragile, whining, pity-playing woman, then you think like that are two totally different mental constructs. That's not the case. The mindset behind it is identical. It's if you really dive into narcissism, what it is, then you will see that they all operate according to the same book, so to say. And it doesn't matter how the ego manifests, but once you can look behind the ego into the drivers of the mind, it's like they have suddenly like a keyboard on them with commands. You know, if you press that button, you have that reaction. You put there, it's programmed. It's a programmable environment, and there's no awareness.
A narcissist cannot reflect.
No.
Lack of empathy.
Yes.
But since there's no, connection with inner core, then they cannot,
They cannot see their own actions. They believe they can see their own actions, and that's a different thing. But how do you explain that awareness? Like, many people who are non-narcissists are not even fully aware of their own ego manifestations. And they identify themselves with the behavioral output, so to say. The way how they walk, the way how they present themselves. Oh, that's me. That's just me. But they cannot really see why they do it the way they do. Is it a lack of insecurity? Or is it an insecurity that they present themselves a little bit bigger than they are? Are they like short-minded in that sense, but they justify it? So you will see that also that unawareness of coping mechanisms runs also in like normal people, so to say. But with narcissists, it's fundamental. It's like there's an absolute inability to really look deeper into why you behave the way you do. Everything you do is justified. It's never their fault. So whatever it's aimed at the narcissist, like it's perceived as a criticism, will be rejected, will be justified, will be reflected back to you. There is no admittance about things. And if it happens, it serves the purpose for the narcissist. So then it is in the favor of the narcissist, so to say. So
it's like learned skill.
Yes.
You have to apologize to get what you want.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So to really explain how that mental construct works, I like to use comparisons with other things that people can relate more easily to than understanding a human being. Because even when you are one yourself, it's pretty hard to understand how we function, But now in this time, most people are aware of artificial intelligence, of OpenAI. ChatGPT is a plugin for OpenAI. OpenAI itself doesn't do anything. It's just an enormous calculating power, but doesn't move in any direction. It needs a driver behind it, a command. Let's put ChatGPT as a linguistic model. You put it into OpenAI, and it manifests powerful into what you ask from it. OpenAI is basically the copy of the mental construct of a human being. The intelligence of a human being is just like the OpenAI, is a calculating force, the cognitive functioning. But it needs drivers behind it to manifest in a certain way. And the drivers are so fundamentally behind the mental construct that it's really hard to notice your own drivers because you identify with them. You are the drivers for your senses. But if you really look into the different perspectives, so how the world is seen, then you see that the drivers differ between, for example, a cluster B pattern or narcissist, or a majority perspective, so like a healthy human being. There are some models also that explain the main drivers behind narcissism, and that are basically A.G. Tudor has a really good framework for it, and he said like it's the 4 prime aims where the mental construct works on. And the 4 prime aims behind the mental construct for a narcissist is control everything in the environment. So you, they, see, all people just visually and mentally in the construct of that narcissist has to signal that they are under control. And we will talk later how that looks like, that control. But a second driver of that mental construct is the emotional output. They call it narcissistic supply or fuel. Is the emotional output that you give to the narcissist caused by something that the narcissist do. So you signal back that ego construct exists. So that ego construct manifests in a certain way, provokes you, or seduces you, or stimulates you. You react, and that makes that construct exist. And that is also that validation, attention-seeking behavior that you will see in a typical narcissist, so to say. They need that emotional output for other people to have a sense of self, because they identify solely with that ego construct. If that ego construct is not recognized by the outside world, it starts to crumble and the sense of self disappears. They will have a feeling of impending doom, of something is going to go really wrong. Like, they don't know what it is, but it gives that sense of unease, of anxiety, of restlessness, and that propels them into gathering that emotional output from other people. So that is the second driver. And then you have the third driver, and it is the aspects of other people to take from you and bolt on their own construct, because they don't have an inner self. They don't have an authentic core. So they have to manufacture themselves with aspects what they see, borrow or steal, so to say, from the outside world. So a lot of copying.
Because all people have narcissistic traits,
Yes.
which means
Yes.
people are vain, people are
Yeah.
attracted to themselves.
Yeah.
And narcissist basically just mirrors you back to yourself.
Yes.
That's why they are so effective.
Yes,
And
yes, yes.
yeah, okay.
And it is all done for that, to keep you under control, to extract that fuel
Yeah.
output that you give, to take character traits from you. So, for example, like if you are an admirable person with an extensive network and you have some kind of importance, so to say, and I'm a narcissist, then you are a very attractive prospect for me. Why? Because you give me access to certain things. So I don't give any shit about you, no, but what you mean to me. So it's, and then the fourth driver comes also into play, is what benefits can I extract from you? So that are the 4 drivers behind that construct of the narcissistic mind. If you look to an empathic person, then you see that the drivers are slightly different. One of the main drivers is emotional empathy, and it is the recognition of other individuals.
It's like a fail-safe mechanism.
Yes.
for person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's
Yeah, you don't use other people in that sense that they are just objects to
Yes.
get your.
No, that's perfectly said. Like a narcissist cannot see another individual as an authentic being, but you are objectified. You are a toaster, an appliance. And as long as the toaster works, if you push the level and after 2 minutes a toasted bread comes out, you are a good appliance. And you are treated favorably.
But true narcissist has connections with everybody in the same way. If we're talking about young children or old people, they operate always the same way. Yes.
Depends how they use the facade. Like the facade is that construct, is the environment of coping mechanisms, so to say, is the ego. And there are a whole palette, a whole range of different manifestations of the facade. So first it's really important to understand the mindset that drives that ego construct. And then each ego is formed in the formative years to adapt to the unfortunate circumstances where that narcissist is formed, because it's a trauma response. Like, we really like to stigmatize narcissists, but fact is, they are formed by trauma. Just like almost everybody in this world is formed in a level of trauma, but they are also formed in trauma. And to have that sense of self, they have learned to act to get what they want. And that will form and manifest in different ways. So if a child got the attention that it wanted by crying offense about everything, and that was the pull that it suddenly get recognition, and that ego starts to evolve around an actor, so to say, that use pity plays, that use extensive complaining, is the hard done to. It's the individual that really walks around like the universe has cursed them. They have a pile of problems, and they always seek some kind of sympathy, and that is how it manifests. That is how they get that control, by putting the pity play, and you put your sympathy in it by listening, and you signal you are under control. You provide fuel by here, there, like that is the way how they manifest. In another individual, it was by being aloof, like no, I just walk off, and then suddenly it gets attention. Hey, where are you? Like, so you can understand that the differences in how that ego is formed, that narcissism will manifest in adult life, and that gives the whole range on different manifestations of narcissism. Then there's also the level of blindness. Like, there are 3 categories of let's say it, awareness, or the lack of awareness within narcissism. Like, the majority of narcissists is, how do you say it, half blind. They cannot self-reflect, they don't know what they are, but they have cognitive empathy. They recognize human behavior and they emulate it themselves. So they look similar to us. They behave on the surface similar. They can exhibit empathic manifestations. They can behave like they look compassionate. They can...
but there's no... It's not genuine.
It's not genuine. Yeah. It's a fabrication. But they will hardly believe their own creations, because that is where they identify with. And then you have on the lower spectrum, the double blind ones. They don't operate that facade. that are the wrecking balls, that are the obviously ones, the one that hit the employer in the face. If you have a disagreement, never pay the bills, they rape, they steal, they are like in a high conflict with police, that are the typical jail in, jail out criminals, so to say. Like they are obvious. They don't operate cognitive empathy.
But what's the difference then between narcissist and psychopath? Because this...
It's also cluster B. It revolves also around a lack of empathy. To explain it better is like in personality disorders, you have the cluster A, B and C. A and C is not a topic now, but they are for society at large not problematic. They are interpersonally challenging. If you have a family member who has one, like schizophrenia or like anxiety or anxiety-based disorders, they are challenging. They are heavy to live with a person like that. But the cluster B, that's the really dramatic one. That's the one that really makes his presence known in the world, so to say. And there are basically 4 in the DSM-5, the Diagnostic Manual for Psychiatric Disorders. There are the 4 in the cluster B is antisocial, so psychopathy, sociopathy, narcissism, borderline, and histrionic.
How do you know all of this?
That is the next question. Like histrionic personality disorder is all about attention seeking in the sensual way, the extravagant way, the seducing, using sexuality in a high demand, dramatic. It's really manifesting in the sensual and the provocation, sexual provocation, and that kind of way. The borderline is the professional victim. Is the one with excessive emotional outburst, find every reason to really cry, tears of distraught and agony, but also put the blame on everybody else except themselves. You know, like now narcissism, what the main topic is, and one that is a little bit separately from it, that has an extra dimension. It is the antisocial, because also the emotional world is void. They don't have an emotional world, so they only operate on the logical mind, so to say, on the cognitive functioning. So the whole flavor of emotions is also gone. If they collide, so like antisocial and narcissism collides, it is all around that same point of a lack of empathy, then and awareness also comes in place, so they are self-aware, then you know who rules the world. That is basically what puppeteers society at large. They don't have remorse, they don't have a moral compass, they are fully justified in whatever they do. They have a rampant sense of self-importance, entitlement. They feel totally entitled to puppeteer people.
Basically, they are like young children in the age of maybe 3 to 4, maybe 2 years when you just
the inner side, yes, yes.
Yeah.
But that inner side is not accessible. It's locked well away by that outer appearance, by that ego. And when does it make its presence? That small, neglected, whiny inner child, that deeply wounded and shameful, because that is one of the big main drivers that keeps that narcissism in check, is shame. How can you access that in a narcissist? By wounding. By severely wounding. So you give a blow to the construct. You punch a hole into that construct so that and that inner voice can whisper out and tells that narcissist in his eye, you are fake. You don't exist. You are a fraud. They hear that voice and they cannot stand it, and it has to be locked well away. So the narcissism kicks in, otherwise it ceases to exist and the sense of self will disappear. So it will frantically just reclaim control over the situation. And many people don't understand what wounding really is. If you tell the narcissist some home truths, like that it is an asshole, that it behaves in that way, that it's challenging for that narcissist, for sure, but it's not wounding, because you actually fuel the narcissist with, the sense of self is really empowered. So you will never win that argument.
But let's take your experience. You had 2 marriages, and one was 18 years, the other was 5 years?
5.5, yeah.
Yeah, okay. But after that time, you know, just a little bit, no names, no nothing, but just describe what that relationship with one and the other was like, and
what the difference was.
What the difference was, and when did you started to realize that what it is, and so on.
The first, my first relationship, I entered when I was 19. After a devastating childhood, I was happy to escape from my home situation. I was properly seduced by my first narcissistic relationship. And in the beginning, all is well. All is perfectly well. You have the feeling you are understood. You are cherished for who you are. The narcissist experience in that moment not love, but infatuation. So, because you fuel that narcissist properly by your admiration, like your compassion, your patience, your empathy directed towards that narcissist feels like fueled, and it is that sense of that fuel that they feel like, they feel so amazing about it, and you are idolized by it. You really are put on a pedestal because you are the cause of it. So it's not sincere. It's not an expression of love. It's an expression of selfish behavior, because the more that narcissist mirrors that behavior to you, the more it comes back to that narcissist. So
basically, you're a generator.
Yes, you're a generator. And that period cannot last, because that fuel becomes, on one point, normal. It's not new. The novelty goes off. It becomes stale. And that sense of self from that narcissist is not charged anymore as it was before. And they are craving for that sense of power and importance back. And then the dynamic starts to shift into, they call it the devaluation. It's like the ignorance of your authentic self. So whatever is important for you will not be recognized, will be put down, so you start to respond differently. You get frustrated, you feel neglected. So your responses are changing, and that gives that contrast in that fuel where they thrive on. So they will put you on a roller coaster ride between idolizing you and then devalue you. And then they shift between that 2 states to have that contrast in that emotional output of you to, it's a selfish act, purely done for themselves. Now, my first partner was the more victimized one, more the one that used pity plays.
Like victim.
Yeah, was pretty much victimized and used tears also easily. So that provokes your emotional state, your emotional thinking. Like every time when something like that happens, you blame yourself. Like, I'm the cause of this, you know, like, so you put in the extra miles to just mend what has happened. And yes, that lasted 18 years. It was quite long, you know, like 18 years of up and down, but always the feeling that you are chasing the dragon. You feel like the donkey behind the carrot, you know, like always trying to reach a point of harmony, of sustainability, but there's always something around the corner that just disrupts it again, and you are again in some kind of a weird space. And till I reached the age of 38, and I didn't recognize myself anymore. I was completely disconnected from my authentic core, like my true desires, what I want in life, what I was working for. My emotional state, my emotions shredded on pieces. Numb.
But you didn't recognize it. You just
no, I recognized that something was off, and I just hit rock bottom, like literally. And I saw also very clearly, like if I continue with this, it will bring me on my knees, or even worse. You know, like I cannot take this anymore. So I decided to unplug the relationship, and then the real shit happens, you know, like the reaction is, how dare you to leave me, and I will. And that really manifested in a way. Now I understand what happened. Back then I was just like trying, you know what, you can only have a fight if two people fight, so I don't fight, you know, like I just take my distance and I just want to move on with life. Long story short, I lost my right to exist in my own country in a time period of 10 months. I lost everything. My house, my finances, my company, blocked off of my children, and basically fighting off 6 bailiffs, and were unable to generate any income anymore in my own country. In a time period of 10 months. Why? Because I threatened her control in such an extent by just removing myself from that situation.
But with this action, did you wound her? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is wounding. It's denying the control and denying the emotional output that you give by removing yourself from that situation. So that narcissist needs to reassert control over you, but can't. And then everything available is allowed to happen, to have that sense of control. So by forcing you into something, you signal you are under control. But unconsciously, I was not aware of it in that time. I provoked that narcissism in such an extent that it really manifested. If I look back on it, now I understand. Now I understand what happened. Like, for example, like the house. Like, she tried to manipulate me because that house, I worked on it for 10 years to renovate it nicely, and I was really attached to that, to my house, so to say. And that was the first thing to keep me engaged. And on one point I saw also, like, if I hold on to it, I just sign up for another decade of agony. I'm not gonna do that. So my whole feeling and my attachment with that house is already that much poisoned that I lost the value of it. So I just let it go. And I said also, like, you can have it. It's all yours. I'm not gonna fight about it. Yeah, it's yours. So there was no fight there, you know, like, yeah, it's yours. But it was not her win, but it was actually just me putting a boundary, subconsciously. And that was a threat to control. So then there's another thing, and another thing, and another thing. And 10 months later, it resulted in a complete character assassination of me and losing the right to have a decent life in my own country. And that was the reason why I basically ended up here in Estonia. Straight in the arms of the next one. Yeah, straight in the arms of the next one. That was a completely different type. It was more the overconfident, charismatic, a wide social circle. First appearance was like she was aware of the deeper meaning of life, of also therapist, so you think like that is a decent human being, right? The first year, 1.5, all went well. Most of the times I was away from home also for work, of course. But there is something with narcissism. If you signal you are under control, so you are under total control, so you have a child together, you are married, she had full access to my financial part, so it are all the signals he is under control. And then the dynamic starts to change and you go into the sustained devaluation. And there I found myself again in a situation where I really don't want to be, you know, like I didn't feel seen for who I was, like completely ignored what my wishes were. And I countlessly pointed out like my wishes in life, what we were so similar in the beginning. And then I recognize also like everything that is said to me in the beginning, it's just a fallacy.
It's a mirror.
It's a mirror. I fell in love with myself. And that is basically what it is. So everything I want, she wants. Mm-hmm. Everything that I value, she valued. So you fall in love with yourself. And that is basically the seduction of narcissism. Like, can you blame them? No, you can't. Of course you do, if you are subjected by it. But if you look close, and if you really understand what it is, you cannot blame them. Because they don't know what they are. And they are, call it like bots. They are automated in the responses, what they do. They operate in different perspective, and that is their perspective, and that is their vision of the world, and that is their truth, so to say.
But when you noticed the similar pattern, the other relationship, yes. But the pattern was the same.
The pattern was the same, yeah.
Then I imagine it takes a lot of courage to start to, this awareness, because this is what you need. You need to be aware.
Yes. I entered a space in myself that I realized, like, now I'm utterly actually. I lost my life in my own country, and I'm living here under the grace of a narcissist with my life on a silk thread. I don't have the right to exist here, basically. I don't have anything. And I'm fully dependent on the grace of that woman. I also recognize that most of the things in our life were orchestrated and controlled by her, even my own finances. I started a new company, and it was also fully managed and controlled by her.
Well, you gave her the control,
Yes. Because like there is a subconscious thing
to please.
Now, a subconscious thing that we all do, and it's projection.
Okay.
Is narcissist projects, but we project also. So if you are unaware, like just a normal decent human being, and you interact with another decent human being, and and that other person tells a lie, you know that other person is a lie. If you tell a lie, you know you are telling a lie. So you expect that other person also knows that. So you project your own understanding of how you work onto other people. That is subconsciously. Why? Because we are all human beings, right? So we think that we all operate with that same drivers behind it. So if we screw up, so to say, we are able to recognize that. So you expect that somebody else has also that ability to do that. And that's not the case, especially not if you are dealing with narcissism. And that was one of the many things that I realized in the second relationship, that there is a total inability to accept any criticism. An absolute inability. So whatever you try to say, there's always a justification. It's always turned around, or making your fault, or it's avoided, projected back at you, and on one point you start to get so frustrated, so like that you become like bitter, you become closed off, you start to lose your trust in that person. And we have a small child together. After the birth of that child, really the dynamic changes. And from that point I became aware of something is fundamentally off, and I start to really dive into the topic to say, like, how is it possible that I entered the second time now in this space, but now with, for my feelings, even more severe consequences. Like if that same dynamic rolls off like the previously one, where am I done? You know, like if I was not even supported in my own country, how will I end up here? And then I really start to dive into it to understand what it means. And took me altogether like 2.5, 3 years to fully map it out. And yeah.
But if someone would have known your situation, then what could have someone like do to make you notice, or to try to help you in that situation?
That is a hard one. That is a hard one. Like first and for all, the person, like in that case me, must have a willingness to listen to that other person's concerns without justifying the bad behaviors of your partner. There must be a willingness to consider something and to see it. If that consideration is there, if you are open to look into that direction, because that is fundamental. Like if you don't want to fix your things, if you don't want to understand things, then it doesn't matter what you tell, nothing works, you know? So that is really important. And the second thing is that if you can convey the information in such a way that they can comprehend that the partner or the person where they are involved with operates in different perspective, so that they can understand that how that person looks at the world and how they look at the world is fundamentally different, then there is that first corner of the curtain that is lifted. And once you know, you cannot unknow it anymore, because you see it manifesting. You see it, you become aware. There is a hidden door open in your mind, and you start to detect it. Especially if you have the tools to recognize it and to test a person by the invisible keyboard, what I said, like with the commands, to test the narcissistic responses. And you can really see it manifesting. Then only deliberate ignorance keeps you into that place.
But when you know what you're dealing with, then what is the solution? I mean, this hopium, what everyone has, does it work? You mean, can you fix the relationship somehow?
No. If you are determined to stay in the relationship, some people decide that for the kids or for
the house, for the
house, for whatever reason they have. And I don't say it's invalid. Like, every person has to make up their own mind in how important it is. But understand this is, expect that the relationship till the end of days will be challenging. It will never be a satisfying relationship. You cannot harmonize with a narcissist because you will inevitably threaten the sense of control. Because that is how they look at the world.
And you cannot give also endlessly, because you can. This also gets used to, you know.
Yeah, but even when you purposely give, it can already threaten the sense of control, because it is not provoked by them.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
then they feel controlled. And then they have to shift it around. So you can never expect anything from a narcissist to say like, okay, we gonna you smooth down the narcissist, or you model coddle them. Like, it doesn't work. They, on one point, they subconsciously feel like the power play. They are the manipulators. They are the controllers. And if they have a sense that they have been controlled or been manipulated, it will turn around. So
basically, two narcissists cannot exist in a relationship, or can they?
Yes, they can. It's a really turbulent one. It's that are most of the times like different types of narcissists. So, for example, a victim and an elite, for example, or like. There are different manifestations of the ego. So they both need to control each other, and they both need to extract emotional output from each other. Now, narcissists have an emotional world, as many people clearly have understood. You know, in the outbursts, and they are different, the emotional world, but they have one. So they have an output. So they cater to the aims of what that narcissist needs. But they will inevitably constantly walk into each other's defenses, so to say.
It's so-called love-hate relationship.
Now, love is not present in a narcissist.
I understand, but these, extremes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but if they can both have that sense of control, and the benefits of both is sufficient enough, they get locked in that relationship. Will not be a nice one, from our perspective. Then you really think like, so, but a good example of it is Bill and Hillary Clinton.
Okay.
Bill Clinton is a self-aware narcissist. He's a bright man, and he's aware of what he is. Hillary Clinton is an unaware narcissist, and they are locked.
And you can observe people what they do, and come to fairly
accurate conclusion. Yes.
Okay.
Because I'm aware of the drivers behind the mental construct, so to say.
Switching gears a little bit, it's obvious that this narcissism and narcissists are like great effect on groups of people. Mm-hmm. But if to look at this narcissism question in the context of workplace, if I have my personal experience now that I know what this narcissism thing is, then picture is quite clear with the past. workplace experiences which were like unexplainable. How can people be like they are?
Yes.
But this like explains. But if for example, if you were a director of a company or HR management, human relations, how could you use this tool, which you could like provide, you know?
You have two aspects of, for example, for HR managers. It's like the attracting people, so taking people in and managing people. Now, the first place is taking people in. If you do that with full awareness of narcissism and you have all the available tools, you can screen them properly and monitor them in a safe space that you have the possibility to, if you have seen too many red flags, that you can say you are not part of our organization and that you can decide it based on your knowledge about narcissism. The other aspect of employees who already are solid, embedded, so to say, you cannot easily get rid of them. They are part of your organization. But fact is that in most corporate structures of bigger companies, like inevitably are a few narcissists on certain position. You will detect certain dynamics by conducting yourself in the right way. You can trigger the narcissistic responses. You can document them. You can gather your proof. You can do damage control by slowly building in your defenses around that person so that that person cannot poison the rest of the environment. And the more you play with the narcissistic control, so to say, the more that narcissists will expose themselves and create evidence that it is in fact a toxic person. And then it's like, if you really realize it, you want to get it out of your organization. You want to manage it.
But in corporate world, is a narcissist a toxic person? If it's no, my question is that is he a toxic person, or maybe he, thanks to the narcissism, is beneficial for the company? Where is the toxicity there?
The toxicity is in the interpersonal relationships. So if you have a CEO, for example, and many CEOs are unfortunately narcissists. They are. That's why they have the position of CEO. They have that level of importance. It gives an
power and control.
Power and control. They gather a lot of fuel. They have that sense of importance. Can you kick off a CEO? That is a different story, of course. But I talk about like if you have a structure and you have like foremen, managers, the top as a leader. Now, if that leader is a non-narcissist and wants to have a synergy, like a healthy dynamic in the company, the top of the pyramid has an influence in who sits on which position and can change that. If you have a manager who is on paper doing a good job, understanding narcissism means that the direct environment of the other people that have to be working around that individual, they are tense. They are walking on eggshells. They cannot perform how they genuinely are. It's like you have the basket with apples and you put one rotten apple in the middle. It will affect the rest. Mentally, emotionally, you get a lack of motivation. You get an unsafe environment. You don't feel seen for who you really are. There is no empathy there. There is no sincere cooperation. There's no trustworthy support. And that is not a manager. It's an abuser. But it has the role of a manager. And you have to accept it because that individual is in that position. But it is not really creating a healthy, thriving environment. Yes, it can function because everything is so rigid and everyone is locked in his position. You know, but if you can change your structure by replacing the narcissistic individuals for normal or empathic persons, you will see that the whole dynamic to the foundation of what really creates your organization will flow effortlessly. Everybody feels seen. Everybody feels included, so to say.
Probably everyone has felt someone who like comes into the room and like a black cloud is with them.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, you know, like tenses up and there's no difference if it's a manager or if it's a salesman.
No.
Okay.
No, it's just the presence of that person. Even when it's just a coworker, because narcissist permeates whole society, from the fundamental layer till the top, so to say. Our politicians, leaders, the CEOs in corporate structures. Let's say that 80-85% of them are narcissists. They orchestrate our world. Our system is fully created through the narcissistic perspective.
I read a book, Butterflies Are Free to Fly.
Mm-hmm.
And the author there says that basically human world consists of two types of humans, human children and human adults. Difference is human children basically do not take responsibility and human adults do. This means that basically you live your life, you don't blame anyone, and life is awesome. And if you're a human child, there's no difference in age, if you're 2 or 62.
Yes.
If you're a victim, if you exhibit all these narcissistic traits, then basically you are a human child. But there are a lot more human children than there are human adults.
Yes.
And all power positions are filled with like politicians, like where you have, you know, power and influence and
human children.
Human children.
Yeah.
And this world is being built by human children for human children.
Yes.
So, but we have a chance to recognize that and make some adjustments if you're, you know, a victim of even spouse or co-worker. But if you start to recognize it, then you don't have to, you know, abandon your world.
No.
You can start to pull away the fuel.
Yes. That is the main thing. Like, there are so many people who sincerely want to change the world from top to bottom. If the leaders were different, if the system was a little bit different, less abusive, if this, if that, it will never happen. And why? Because the whole control of our society is enhanced by cluster B patterns. They will never change. That they won't. And time over time, history already showed that is the case, and that there will always be.
The real change always comes from person within.
From bottom. Yeah.
Like your example, you recognized it, and you started to change it.
Yes.
Yeah. And this means that your world view has
dramatically changed.
Okay.
Yes. And the only way how things can really change is on the personal level. Yeah. So if you take radical responsibility, that is what it is, and that is in this society that is created by the narcissistic perspective, so to say. We have learned from young age to give our power away. Somebody else is responsible for our things. There is a legal system. There are all kinds of rules and things like that where we can hide behind. But if you take radical responsibility for your own happiness, for your own moral view of the world, of your own values, and you start to understand that other perspective, and to avoid that out of your life. In the beginning, you will face a really turbulent time. Your old world really crumbles around you, falls away. Many people in your world will leave. You will end up with the feeling of, I'm alone. I really am alone, you know, like, but it's a turning point. Your outlook on life starts to shift more in recognizing the sincere aspects of people. So you are only open to cooperate or to communicate or to connect with people who operate your perspective. And that will change your whole reality. Like everything around you will change. Your connections, probably your relationship, your work environment, your choices, your view on the world, how you look to politics, how you look to the for example, also like with the war stories, with everything that's projected on you, you start to look it through the lens of the different perspectives, and you can see what is actually operating the movements that you see around you, and you can disconnect from it and just make your own choices.
Basically, the narcissist tries to keep you off balance.
Yeah.
So if people feel off balance, then they are easily manipulated and controlled.
Yeah.
So to start to find the balance, it's really helpful just to observe your close relationships and work environment.
Yes.
So that you could not to judge that this is narcissist and that.
No.
But to just to observe who and how influences you, and what you can do about it.
What I use it for myself was it's very easy to embody the victim role, and I have to admit, in the past I felt victimized quite often. And why? Why is that done to me? But on one point you realize that narcissists cannot help themselves but be a narcissist. They are what they are. They don't do it purposely, deliberately, but they just manifest in that way. And you come to the realization that you are an enabler for that narcissistic behavior. You are doing it. And that is a different point of view. So there is no justification for being a victim. No, you are doing it yourself. Because if you don't give that fuel and you just turn away, it doesn't happen. So that is the thing. But what is it that keeps you engaged? What is it that you pour yourself into the black hole, what that narcissist is? Because that is what it basically is. You can pour in whatever you want, it's never enough. And you will always be molded, manipulated into the entitled response that they feel entitled to. It are, most of the times, wounds. I want to be seen. I want to be recognized for who I am. I want to be understood. Your insecurities are utilized against you. Your shame is used against you. Your emotional thinking becomes your enemy. You start to justify behavior. It occupies your rational mind. There are that kind of mechanisms that keeps you engaged into that dynamic. And if you take radical responsibility for yourself, you start to recognize, like, I have to change, and then my reality changes. I cannot change that narcissist, that's impossible. That they will never change, you know, like, but what you can do is, and what you should do is, take an honest look at yourself. What is it that I enable that narcissistic behavior? And I hear so many people to say, like, yeah, but it's my parent. Yeah, so? Yeah, but I ought to love my mother, or I ought to love my father. Do you? Do your father or your mother really love you? Have you seen that behavior over the course of your life? What is it that keeps you engaged? It's the false morality that you have. I ought to love that person.
And which is being exploited.
And that's been exploited, yes. But by understanding like deeply that perspective, you start to look to that person through a whole different lens. Like if you realize that a narcissist is unable to love, for example, they don't love you, never did. They don't love the children, they don't love the pets, they don't love the neighbor, they don't love anybody because they have an inability to they don't know what it is. They cannot love because the substance of love is to have emotional empathy. And they don't have any of that. So,
but everything starts, well, you have a choice, right? For example, if there are parents, you can, you can still love them, but you must disconnect it to this level that it's not draining you, you know?
Yeah, but you can distance yourself, yes, and you should, for your own benefit, but realize this, is that every interaction, every engagement, every attempt or whatever it is, like family gatherings, you will come into the proximity of that narcissist, and that narcissist looks at you. Are you under control? That's the first thing that goes on in that mind. Do you signal you are under control? And inevitably you will have the range of manipulations. You are aware of it and you reject it. It will give tension and it will feel draining. So don't expect after you know what narcissism is that you say, I just go into that situation. That will be happy occasions. You will feel drained. You will feel the consequences of it.
But you know why you feel
drained. Yeah, you know why. And but it will not be. Then the question arises also: why do you still want to experience it?
But you have the option only after the awareness.
Yeah.
Because if you're not aware, then you have no options.
You have no options, and the narcissistic perspective will find a place to set a hook, and you are back engaged, one way or another, positive, negative, doesn't matter. You will provide the fuel. You will provide the sense of control.
Okay, but since you have a lot of experience, and for me, the way you explain stuff is really easy to grasp.
Mm-hmm.
What do you intend to do with this knowledge and these years of experiences? So it's like, how do you want to use your powers, let's say?
Raising awareness, that most and for all. Like, for example, in the personal relationships, most people who are victim or enablers for narcissistic behavior are inherently beautiful people. That's the reason why they are entangled in the first place. They are highly empathic people. In my opinion, they deserve a better chance. Like in the corporate structure, in companies. I worked as a freelancer in the mechanical field for over 15 years in the offshore industry, in the petrochemical industry. So I traveled international from one project to another project, worked for countless companies. And I have a good memory and I can reflect back on all my projects, so to say, how the dynamics of the people were where I worked with. And now with that understanding of narcissism, I can recognize why certain dynamics were heavy and other dynamics were delightful, so to say. And then I can see that with the most like contractors, like the more bigger companies, and that the corporate success, so to say, there are always narcissists involved, in foremen, in supervisors, in project leaders, in managers, and they leave some kind of an invisible dark blanket over the group dynamic, so to say. And I worked also for like the smaller companies, and that were more like family companies. And the companies that were void of narcissists, it works like you are an extended part of the family. Like you are appreciated for who you are. You feel valued for your input. Most of the times when that project was over, I felt some kind of a level of homesickness even. Like I felt so at home in that workplace. Like, and that is the difference, what it really makes. And then I think also like every company has the ability to function in that way. Every organization can function like that family-based company. Why? Because from my experience, well, if I look back at it, it is the presence or the absence of narcissists, solely. Like every normal human being with the ability to self-reflect, see his own actions, and doesn't want to control other people. It wants to get things done, it wants to share, it wants to cooperate. That will map out in a completely different way as when the narcissistic dynamic is involved.
So you would be delighted to help people who are entangled.
Yes, yes.
Because first of all, you have to recognize that something is wrong to seek help.
Yeah, yeah.
I have heard a lot of talk about narcissism and what it is and what is not, but no one really
grabs it. No.
Yeah, yeah.
And what there is also a fundamental lack of a true understanding in the therapeutic field, even in psychiatry. Like go to a family therapist with a narcissist, and you will sit together on the chair. I've been there, so I know. And the therapist will say it takes two for a tango. You both have to put in the part, and inevitably you will come home and find out that you've been triangulated with the narcissist or with the therapist. Yeah, the therapist said this and this, and that whole visit with the therapist will be used against you to reinforce the mindset of the narcissist. And the therapist is unaware of it, or is a narcissist themselves. And that is also quite often because it's a honeypot for narcissists. The therapeutic scene. Why? Yeah. It provides a massive sense of control, fuel, the emotional output that is generated by the people, the residual benefit. Hey, they pay and they keep you in the loop with things. So it's what I noticed, there is no adequate working model to raise that awareness in a proper way. There is no like accurate support to really break through in understanding the difference between that perspectives, because that is basically what needs to be done to fully understand it.
Okay, let's say someone sees this interview and resonates with the topic at hand. We will leave your contacts in the show notes. And you, is there some kind of company or are you just man on the horse, so to say?
No, I'm the founder of HumanDynamics. I provide with coaching offers for for individual coaching, for like people who struggle with the intimate relationship, or with a toxic family dynamic, or that's the private one-on-one coaching tragic. I can provide on location for small groups. It's a program of like 10 sessions that we really dive from the beginning, what the narcissistic mindset is, how it manifests in different forms, what you can do with it, recognizing the flags. That's more for people like managers, or like people who work in the service industry, who just really want to bolster the knowledge in the social dynamics, so to say. And I give also personalized, tailor-made coaching for business leaders, for leaders of organizations, as a personal counselor, to really dive deep into understanding narcissism, understanding the dynamics in their specific organization, that together we can look to the dynamics, how they unfold, what the dynamic is. I can give feedback with examples. So if there are questions like with certain individuals, a director or like a leader can give insight, and I can spar with that leader to really raise the awareness of like this is going on, and help that person navigate through the intricate web of communication, what is going on.
Mm-hmm. And at the moment you operate in Estonia, but this kind of help doesn't recognize boundaries of the country.
No, I can do that also online or on the phone. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's in English at the moment.
In English, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, in time, I can cooperate, and then I can also provide it in Estonia. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think it really captured the topic.
The essence.
Mm-hmm. The essence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.